Hi there. So today I will keep the explanation of this content integration with Unity itself. So as you can see, this model is already poly painted, and what we are going to do right now is bring this poly paint information to texture. So first of all, we are defining that texture size is 2048. And also the map border for 16. Then we actually generate the texture using a new texture from PolyPaint, as you can see here. It's really important that you have the mesh on its highest poly count so that you can provide enough information for the texture. And you can notice that the texture is already projected in the correct UV layout. As you can see here, I'm avoiding baking any volume or lighting into the diffuse channel itself, as this will help easily combining the texture from the head and the texture from the rest of the body. If you consider that the same head texture might need to be combined to different body textures, or even be used combined with different head normal maps, it makes sense that the diffuse color is neutral and don't bring any volume information. So after the poly paint is converted on the actual texture, I clone the texture so that it can be exported and used on Unity. As the texture is generated vertically flipped, I press this button so that the texture can be corrected. And I actually export the image as a PSD file. For generating the normal map, the mesh requires to be on the lower subdivision level, so it can bring all the volume from all the higher levels. The rest of the process for generating the normal map texture is quite similar to the process for diffuse texture. As we also need values for specular and glossiness, I usually generate extra textures that might help for generating the necessary data. Here you can see I've created a displacement map with the overall volume of the face. I'm also going to create another displacement map with smaller detail areas and a cavity map. As you can see, this sculpture has some fine detail that I would like to bring to the displacement map as a specific texture. To bring this specific detail, what I usually do is I bring the subdivision level to a higher value, like in this case the number 4 and the subdivision steps. This makes it possible to calculate the displacement relative to this subdivision level, not the lower one. This results in the displacement bringing the fine details, as you can see here. For the cavity map, the process is a little bit different because cavity is generated based on masking. So I'm in the masking and I will mask by cavity. And for this to work, it's really good to be on the highest poly counts, and depending on the cavity profile, we can have different results on the masking process. After reaching the mask the way I want, I invert the mask and I fill it with black color so that we can have a poly paint with this masked information. Now we need to convert this poly paint to a texture the same way we do with any poly paint information. So it's the same step as the diffuse texture. As you can see, it's already color data, so I'm just creating from poly paints and exporting the same way as before. Those extra textures are not necessary, but might help me on the following steps. All of the process has been done on ZBrush for those tutorials, but this can be also applied in other software. So in the following video, I will explain how those textures can be integrated to Unity. Goodbye.